Hello and welcome to the Bpositive Bloodstream, a podcast providing insights, stories and experiences from and for all those affected by acute leukemia and beyond. My name is Jonjo and I'm the founder of Bpositive and the host of the Bloodstream. I want these podcasts to provide help, inspiration and belief to all people. Bpositive is both my blood group and my adopted mantra that I held throughout my treatment. I hope you enjoy our interviews, and if you wish to get in touch with us, then please do so by emailing us at info@bpositive.org.uk, or you can find us on Twitter at b_positive_org. Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode or edition, whatever we call it these days, of the Bpositive Bloodstream. You'll be pleased to hear it's not just going to be myself rambling on my own this time. I'm joined by a really special guest, Kiwi. Before I bring Kiwi in, I'll give you a little bit of insight into how I know Kiwi. So with the work I do at Macmillan Cancer Support, we're running a really fantastic campaign aimed at getting more men talking about cancer, because men just don't talk about cancer. So Kiwi is coming as a case study and very much headed up the campaign and been the face of the campaign in many ways. And at Macmillan they often get people in to give their story, to give their own story, which I've done to our own staff, but a couple of weeks ago now I sat and heard from Kiwi and found it incredibly insightful, obviously, a very open and honest account which certainly resonated with myself, but it actually turns out that he wasn't that far removed from me in many ways, having been diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia a few years ago. So Kiwi, thanks for joining me. He's tucking into some food that he didn't order. We are in a busy cafe, so if there's any background noise I do apologise, but we'll plough on as best as we can. But thank you for giving up some time. I know we're here to do some men and cancer work for Macmillan, but we'll plough on how we go. But yeah, as I said, I was really touched by your own story. I think I said to you afterwards when we caught up that what struck me most was the honesty of it, and how you didn't sugarcoat it with some colourful language, which is probably why we got on as well. But I felt I had to connect with you on the back of that and really wanted to grab you for a podcast, because I think our audience can resonate with other people having had similar illnesses. I definitely want to expand Bpositive so it touches on people beyond just acute leukemia and certainly beyond my own story. So it felt like two worlds were colliding really. So but the one thing that stood out for me more, and before I ask you just to relay your story if you don't mind, is the overall positivity you've had and held throughout the whole of this, both during your treatment, with a lot of humour in there, because it is real life. I've got some of the funniest stories from my treatment, but we kind of touched base both about similar stories for that, but the positivity that came through really hit home, and I think it's quite refreshing. Naturally, you even used the term "be positive" in your talk, and I thought, I hope this guy's not trying to patent that term, because I've already got an organisation that I've set up based on that. But yeah, so listen, thank you again for sharing your story, and if you wouldn't mind just maybe giving an overview of your story, how you were diagnosed, and I suppose the importance of staying positive and talking to others and being open.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed on September the 20th, 2012. Unlike most blokes that never remember their wedding anniversaries or anything like that, I don't think it's a day I'll ever forget.
Yeah.
But it was a normal day. I was a detention officer at the time, working at Chiswick Police Station. So I went into work as normal, cycled in. I had a bit of a dicky cold, but nothing unusual.
No.
I took a couple of paracetamols because that's what you do when you've got a cold.
Of course. Yeah.
At the station I worked in, there was only two of us, so me and my sergeant. So, unless I was really dying, pardon the pun.
That's the gallows humour. That's the gallows humour.
But I wasn't going to go off sick, so I went into work, did my cell checks. The guy in F2, which is one of the cells, told me to. Pardon my French here, but he told me to fuck off.
Yeah.
Normal day at work, basically. But I just felt a little bit unwell, I guess, and I couldn't put anything on it. But I was turning more and more yellow apparently, and then my sergeant came in and said, "Look, you don't look very well," and I collapsed, and I was blue lighted to Charing Cross.
Oh, you collapsed?
Yeah.
Where were you when you collapsed?
I was at the police station, so I was in
a desk or something. You were?
No. So actually, at the time, I came out from the desk, went into the kitchen because I just felt really hot and then cold and hot and cold. went outside to try and get some fresh air. That didn't help. And then my sergeant said, look, you don't look well, lad. We need to get you to the writing room and maybe sit down there. So as he was like taking me out, just before you put a code in the door to get to the writing room, I literally blacked out.
Wow.
And I later found out basically what it was. My spleen had enlarged about 8 times the size it should have been.
Gosh.
So it was pushing on my stomach and my diaphragm, and that was causing kind of restrictions, and that was causing me to kind of worry more and more pain. So because I was worrying more, I was getting more panicky, and it's just the cycle there. Eventually I blacked out because I lost air. And I came round, I was in the writing room, and and then I got they called an ambulance. And it's a really surreal thing. I mean, police officers deal with this stuff day in, day out. You know, when I was a detention officer, I've been spat at, I've been sworn at, you know, I've been assaulted. You know, it's the normal day. When you deal with prisoners, that's just the way it is. That's your normal life. But when you're faced with something really real and you're sitting in front of your colleagues, there's a look of fear on them. Yeah. And it's real fear, because they thought, oh no, this is just a joke, it's a wind-up. And my sergeant said, no, it's not a wind-up. It's we need to call an ambulance. So
they were concerned.
They were really concerned. Yeah. And my mate Lee, the look on his face, I'll never forget it. And yes, I mean, an ambulance came and they took some tests, and I explained to them. I said, look, how I feel, and they said, look. And I explained I had some pains in my spleen area. I didn't realise it was my spleen enlarged at the time. But I said,
wasn't. It's all a disguise.
I didn't even know we had a spleen. I mean, that's how. I mean, I never went to school. I mean, I wasn't an academic, so. I think we were talking about this earlier on. You become an expert on your own cancer. You become an expert as much as other people when you have an illness. But so I got blue lighted to Charing Cross. That was pretty fucking cool. I've been in police cars being blue lighted onto jobs, but being blue lighted in a big van was pretty cool.
Yeah. Paved the way at least.
Got me there quick, and they said, so I got straight through. They took a whole lot of blood tests, and then the doctor said to me, he said, look, your levels are reducing, but we need to take some blood from your artery. So they took some blood from my artery, and they said, you've probably got leukemia or lymphoma.
Oh my God! How did you feel being told that? That's like
it's
throwing a bullet at you.
It is. It's like something that you can't really describe. And I think the funny thing was, actually, at the time, the doctor said to me, I said, how do we beat it? And he sort of said to me, he said, look, Kay, have you heard what I've said? I said, I've heard what you said, Doc, but with all due respect, I'm waiting for that proverbial fucking bus to come and run me over. Yeah. So how do we beat it? Because I used to use the proverbial bus as an analogy for a lot of things. Of, it could be worse. A bus could come and run you over, and all
everyone,
sort of
stuff. To be hit by a bus.
Yeah. And actually, that's the analogy that I now use when I do my talks and talk about the bus coming towards you.
Yeah, I remember.
These headlights of death, and that's what it represented to me. But equally, and I'm a stubborn fucker, and I wasn't going to let this beat me. No. And that was my attitude. I said, all right, I've got what I've got, and I said to the doctor, I said, but how do we beat it? So that's what I want to know. Don't tell me what we can't do, tell me what we can do. Right.
There's that positivity from the outset.
Yeah. And then I think, a couple of minutes later, my ex-wife burst into tears, and I'm tapping her on the shoulder going, I'm sure it'll be alright, love.
So you turned carer?
Yeah, I did actually. And I turned carer for a lot of other people, my parents and some close friends as well. And I think...
Did that impact... Sorry, in doing that, because I had similar thing, but I found I was protecting my own family. I felt I had to stay positive, more so for them than let my guard down. Obviously I did, but did you find that it helped you to look after someone? Bizarrely, you were the one in
it did a little bit. I think what it was for me was that it just I kind of just thought to myself, well, actually, it could be a lot worse. And when I was in Charing Cross, I went through some small stories that I talk about around fairness, but I talk about also the fact that it could be a lot worse. But that's what has always struck me. I've always been an optimist. That is who I am. I see the glass half full. Always have done. Always will do. Fantastic. Whatever happens in my life, I always see it as, well, do you know what? It could be a lot worse. Yeah. And when I say that, I'm not being blasé about it or being dismissive. I'm just being more that actually it could be a lot worse. Wow. And to me, that was my attitude. When I got diagnosed, it was crap, but all right, do you know what? I've got it now. I can't do anything about it. Yeah. So let's try and do something what I can do. And I've always tried to take that attitude of, I just called it a bump in the road.
I use that exact term actually, and when I give talks, one of my sections is the bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Because it's inevitable, you get those bumps in the road, but it's how you deal with them. No one gets away with a leukemia diagnosis and having treatment without bumps in the road, whether that's infections, bugs, or asparaginase that I needed to have because there was a blood clot and all these type of things. So it's interesting. I mean, there's so many similarities and parallels from what I heard from your story. But the
you're like an English brother from another mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
With more facial hair, which I'm jealous of, by the way.
I'm better looking. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'll get arrested. But no, but for me, that's really what I've found from whenever I've shared my own story. People who have been affected by anything similar. And I mean, I've spoken to people with cervical cancer, breast cancer, but with leukemia, people identify with those little things like bumps in the road, but the approach is sometimes different. My mum used to say to me during treatment, I don't know why you wanted to know everything about, I knew every purpose of every drug I had because I wanted to know. It gave me a semblance of control and a degree of positivity. But I think my mum said, I'd just close my eyes and let them get on with whatever. I don't know, it's different when you're in the driving seat.
I think it is, and I think you've knocked it on the head. It's control.
Yeah.
And I think it's having to take that control back in your life, because I don't know about you, when I was diagnosed, I felt nothing was in control.
Right.
I've been told what medication I've got to take. I've been told, these things are going to go in your body. I've been told this. I've been told that. Whereas I had no control over what I could have. So for me, the things that I could have control over, I wanted that control. I wanted to know what my condition was. I wanted to know how the blood split up. I wanted to know what my condition was. I wanted to know the fact that I had a genetic mutation. I wanted to know the percentages of how many people were diagnosed and the percentage, the fact that I fell into the 0.% category of being diagnosed as a 30-year-old Asian male. But the reason that I wanted to do that was so that I had some control over, an understanding of this is what I've got. And I believe in a saying, which is knowledge is power. I genuinely believe that. And if we understand what we've got and what's our symptoms and everything else, well, then we can do something about it. If we go through, I believe, and I'm talking slightly other stuff around depression and stuff like that, and I've been through this journey, I guess, in the last 7 years.
You've had a lot of hurdles to overcome from having heard your story before, which is incredible, really, real testament.
Yeah, and I just see them as, and I genuinely do just see them as bumps in the road. And some of them were a lot bigger bumps in the road, 6 bereavements in 7 months.
Wow.
Fairly big bump in the road. Having a breakdown at work and having depression.
Yeah.
Being clouded with very negative thoughts, thinking that, if anything else happens to me, I'm not sure whether or not I would have the willpower to live.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And I didn't write a suicide note, and I didn't plan that I was going to kill myself. But I thought to myself, those thoughts came into my head. Now I'm not saying that I wanted to do it, but the irony is when I had depression, I had those thoughts. When I had leukemia, I didn't. And it's really weird. And I think the reason was because.
So sorry, your depression wasn't. Was that before you were diagnosed?
After.
Sorry, it was after.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a consequence of that?
I think it was. I think to me, it's like a rubber band, isn't it? I think my leukemia pulled a rubber band quite far.
Yeah.
And then I got married to my ex-wife, which wasn't the right thing to do, but we did it at the time for those reasons.
Yeah.
Then I got separated.
Right.
Then I joined the police, which stretched it a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I got taken off frontline duties as a result of the side effects of my medication. I literally couldn't hold a knife and fork because I was dropping them.
Right.
And in my video in a minute, I talk about there's a bit in there. I'm like, I talk about saying, he's in the restaurant, he's pissed again, and I'm like, genuinely, that's I was dropping cutlery because I couldn't hold it because of the side effects of my medication.
Did you feel self-conscious at all? Or were you just angry that you?
No, I laughed it off most of the time.
Right.
But there are times when it hits you. And most of the time I was quite positive, but you can't be positive all the time.
No.
And that elastic band was stretching and stretching and stretching. Then I had 6 bereavements in 7 months. Then I threw myself into work and couldn't deal with it. And I had to leave home and move back in with my parents, and all these things. And eventually that elastic band breaks.
Yeah. So the bucket's overfilling.
Exactly.
Almost,
yeah. And when I talk to people, it wasn't a consequence of just the leukemia. It was an added thing to everything else. And that's not. I'm really conscious when I say that, because when we talking about our feelings and things like that can come across as, well, if I've got cancer and I have depression, then I shouldn't have depression. And actually, do you know what? That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is, all those things just happened to me because I didn't want to deal with it. and I threw myself into work, and I threw myself into other ways of diversionary activities because I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
So actually, if anything else now, what I say to a lot of people is don't do what I did. Look at me as the mistake or not mistake, but look at me as an example of what not to do. Be positive, yes, but also talk to people. Be honest with yourself and be honest with your family.
That's the advice you would give.
Definitely. If you're having a shit day, say you're having a shit day, and say I don't want to see people today. I didn't do that because actually I feed off. I'm an extrovert, so I feed off people and I feed off their energy. That's who
me
I
too.
am.
I'm very similar.
You know what it's like. If you're in a room on your own as an extrovert, that's the worst place to be.
Yeah.
If you're in a room with 20 people, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's the best place to be. But at some point, it takes toll on you because you're giving part of yourself.
Yeah.
And what I say to a lot of people now is when I talk about depression, I talk about men, and I do a lot of stuff around trying to break the taboo around depression, because for me, the whole man up situation, that word, to me, it shouldn't be allowed, it should be outlawed. Anyone who says that, I think, to me, it's as bad as calling somebody a racial slur. To me, I genuinely believe that, because all you're doing...
It's discouraging. It's just such a negative and sexist term.
Yeah, it is. Because it's almost saying, well, if you... To man up, of course, you must be a man to do it. But if you're a woman, it's okay to have depression. Now, come on.
It also makes sure. Sorry, it also sounds to me like it's like there's something simple you're not doing. Like it's an attitude thing.
Yeah.
When actually this is life and death.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, when I had cancer, still got cancer. When I was diagnosed and I had bad days, people were sympathetic. When I had depression and I had bad days, people said to me, "Oh, but can't you just make yourself feel better?" And
I looked at it through two different lenses.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's the challenge, isn't it? When we talk about cancer, we talk about the initial diagnosis, which is the kind of commonality bit where people understand, they see you going through chemo, they feel sorry for you, they surround you, they're around you. What happens 6 months later when that chemo isn't there anymore and you're in remission? Those thoughts of nearly dying are still there.
Absolutely. I'm really pleased you touched on that, because I think that's the aftercare side of treatment, I think, is largely untapped, because you can't. I've described it as coming off a conveyor belt and you're left to your own devices. And actually, I don't want to talk too much here. This is your story, but I felt that I missed that care, and I suffered. I didn't suffer with depression or anything much during my. I was never clinically classed as that, but I had low days. But I struggled more after treatment because I kind of felt like. I was left to my own devices, and I still had a lot of the fears I had. I remember reading the book that I was given at diagnosis afterwards, when I was after my bone marrow transplant that I had. It scared the life out of me. Now, I'd had a transplant that I'm very lucky to have, and in a position that not a lot of people are, and I still felt ravaged with fear, having read about my diagnosis and having read what the stats are. You know, so I think it's so great to hear you say that how that fear doesn't leave you post treatment almost. But treatment's different for me, and so one thing I wanted to touch on is that my illness is and was different to yours, because yours is of a chronic nature, mine is of an acute. I suppose it feeds on nicely to a question I had, but I realised I totally interrupted you when we were talking. A key thing I would really love to get your feelings on is, I always had a bit of an end goal for me that I thought my family will get this to a place and a couple will put this behind us. For me, the bone marrow transplant was almost not the finish line. Getting through it was the finish line, because it's such a high risk thing. But for all intents and purposes, I'm on some medication now, penicillin twice a day. But I can actually forget it. I don't forget my illness, but I almost can, because I get back to my normal life. But with the nature of chronic myeloid leukemia now, I may be somewhat naive, but that isn't the case, because it is a part of you. My leukemia actually very much is still a part of me, more emotionally than anything. I give talks, and obviously the charity. I wanted to ask you how you deal, and certainly dealt with the fact that actually this isn't necessarily going to disappear, but you're having to live with it.
Yeah, I think.
If you don't mind me asking.
No. I think it's quite difficult, because I try and explain this to a lot of people when they ask me about my condition, and I explain it in my own layman terms, because that's how I understood it. And when I say to people, and they say, "Oh, okay, but you've had chemo." Yeah, no, I've had harder chemo, but I'm on low dose chemo now. Okay, so what does that mean? Because but you haven't lost your hair, you haven't done this, and you know. And I'm like, no, okay, there's different types of chemo, and this is how it works. And again, we go back to knowledge is power. And I say to a lot of people, look, imagine this: my chronic myeloid leukemia is the tap's running full at the moment.
Yeah,
that's when I was diagnosed. The medication that I'm on turns it down until it's a drip.
Right.
It will never go away. That tap will never stop.
Yeah.
Because it's there. My genetic mutation with my 9th chromosome and 22nd chromosome merged, they're there. They're there for life.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it. So what I say to a lot of people is, living with a chronic condition is it's not harder. I think one of the challenges is that I think with me, there's when you're in remission, I think you can, and you're 5 years on from remission, you can say, yeah, okay, there's a milestone.
Bit of breathing space, yeah.
And although yes, I'm in remedial remission, and I hit 0% for the 3rd time now at zero cytogenic.
Amazing.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
How often did you get told that?
So every 3 months I have a blood test. So the last blood test, it was at 0.08, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it's under the 0% category, and
is that a safety barrier for them? Is that how?
Yeah. So anything under kind of 1% is that they class that as remission.
Great.
Technically, in the wording of remission, they can't class it as remission because I've still got
something,
the cancerous cells.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, when I try and talk to a lot of people, and they're like, well, how do you take your medication every day? I'm like, well, I open up the medication, put it in my mouth and take some water. And most of the time people are like, oh right, okay, he's just being sarcastic and taking the mick, as he's always is. But some people just don't really get it.
No.
They don't think, they almost ask me, they're like, are you taking your illness seriously? And I'm like, yeah, because I take my medication every day and I go to my hospital appointments and I do as best as I can to keep myself healthy.
Yeah.
Do I have a beer on the odd occasion? Yeah. Do I have probably too many? Yeah. But
you're living.
Exactly. When I was diagnosed, I was 30 years old. What am I going to do? Like change my life and stop my life?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that, because to me, then the cancer wins. And I know people talk about a battle and they talk about. Some people don't like using the word battle. Some people don't like using the word fight. I do, because to me it was something that I was going to overcome, and I was going to control it. And that sounds really weird.
And it was something you could win and could get past. Is that how you viewed it?
Yeah. That was, and I also consider myself really lucky. Because when I use the word lucky, and I talk about this when I do my talks, and using the word lucky in cancer, people don't understand it. They can't comprehend it. How can you use the word lucky when you've got cancer?
Yeah.
Well, actually, when I look at other people that have just been diagnosed and they're in a hospital and they've got X, Y, and Z, they've got much worse side effects than I have. How can I not class myself as lucky? That's how I see it. 25 years ago, Jonjo, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
This medication that we've got, the imatinib, when it came in, was called the magic bullet.
Yeah.
Because it slowed down the process of cancer so much, immensely, that I can live a normal life.
Yeah.
Now, what else can I ask for? Like, in reality, when we think about things in life, what else can I ask for? I've got medication that keeps me alive. And that, to me, is the most basic and simple thing that we can ask for in life.
But that, again, is testament to your positive outlook, which often people who judge that haven't experienced anything similar. And I had people saying, I couldn't do, I don't know how you got through it, I couldn't. Well, I had to. I didn't have a choice. You do react to situation. I think your outlook on that is absolutely positive, and it's such a great message for anyone listening to this and there will be people who are going through similar thing, to maybe take on board that advice. I share a similar thing, staying positive, but I'm quite realistic. I was very fragile emotionally and dealing with things, and I struggled, and every now and again I would get overcome with a wave of emotion that, Jesus, I'm dying, I'm actually dying, I'm fighting not to die here. But for you to be able to look at your situation and say, do you know what, this could be a lot worse. I've got, and people said to me, two things you said reminded me of what people said. One of them is about it being lucky. I remember speaking to a counsellor and she said, by the way, you are lucky, you know that? And I said, how do you mean? I was in tears when she said it. She said, there's people out there who don't even know they've got anything and refuse to go to hospital, refuse to be treated. You're being treated now. If you're being treated, you're on the way to getting better and putting this behind you in some way, shape or form.
Exactly.
Whether that's in your situation where it lies chronic and dormant perhaps, or otherwise you are taking ownership and you're being treated. And you, from what you're saying, Kiwi, is that you're able to live your life because of this. So why would you choose to be negative about the fact you even had this when actually you're in a position where you're looking forward?
And I think for me, being negative was really draining, and I touch on it when I talk about my talks and that. I talk about the fairness, but I talk about hate and anger.
Yeah.
And for a long period, I hated the world. I really did.
Really?
I hated anything that was a supreme being. I hated it, and I hated anyone that was successful. I hated anyone that lived. I hated anyone that didn't have cancer. And what I realised is that all that hate, you know what it did? Hate fuels hate.
It does, yeah.
You know what hate is? Hate's a slow poison to your heart, getting blacker and blacker and blacker. And I had to...
It's living in a negative state.
Exactly. If you see darkness, that's all you'll see.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to see darkness anymore. Fundamentally, firstly, that wasn't me. I touched earlier on when we first spoke. I am the most optimistic person.
Yeah.
Too much, to the extent my friends get annoyed by it and go, Kiwi, for God's sake, will you just be negative for a second?
I need to get you down the football with me, mate, so I can be a bit more positive when I'm watching.
Well, I'm a Man United supporter, so I've had
you're doing well to stay positive.
I know. You've got to. That's what's getting me through. But it's that side of it was really hard to be negative.
Yeah.
And really hard to hate. And so when it's really hard to hate and that drains you and it drains the energy out of you, you've got to say to yourself, well, hold on a minute, what have I got to do? Fundamentally, that's important. What have I got to do? Well, actually, I've got to make a choice to look at life differently. I've got to make a choice to look at life and be grateful for the life I've got.
Yeah.
Be grateful for the fact I've got friends and family and people around me that love me and care about me. Because I could be a lot worse. I could be homeless for having cancer.
Yeah.
I could be desolate and having cancer. I could have cancer and going through this whole journey on my own. So when I look at that and I compare, just as we compare everything else, going everyone else's life is better, actually there's so many more people where their life is worse.
Oh yeah.
And when you do that, I think there's an element of, and I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else when I do this. I do it because I saw the amount of energy that it took for me to hate the world. And I refused to go back to that place because I didn't like it.
No.
I didn't like...
Made you feel worse, didn't it?
Yeah, it made me feel rubbish. I really did, because I hated myself for hating the world. I wanted to see the beauty of life. I wanted to stop seeing this darkness and the light. I wanted to see the good in people, not the bad.
Yeah.
Because that's me, that's who I am.
And then you got back to yourself, and it sounds like you almost, you had those dips to come back out, the peaks and troughs, but having experienced the really dark side of it, taught you didn't want to go there, and perhaps that's a way of looking for, I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, but do you think that helps you stay more positive and focused because you know where you've been before?
Yeah, no, definitely does. And I think I go by a saying in life now, and I kind of use the fact, as I say, last 7 years, I've been diagnosed with cancer, I got married, got divorced, joined the police, moved back in with my parents, run up a ridiculous amount of debt, which I'm close to paying off, and I've got another series of managing debts and stuff like that, and coming through the other side. And I had 6 bereavements in 7 months. I had a breakdown at work. Threw myself into work. I thought
you must have felt the world's really asking questions of you.
I did genuinely.
What have you done to deserve
in
that?
2016, when I went off work, I asked myself, I was like, what have I done? Like, and all these things. It's funny. My mate, I was only seeing a mate for a little while, and it was towards sort of the middle of 2016.
Yeah.
This is when I got signed off now by this point.
From work, you mean?
Yeah, from work, yeah. And he said, so what's been going on? I haven't seen you in 4 or 5 years. I was like, well... And I listed off all these things, and he said, mate, like, how are you even standing? And at that point, I was very close to not standing. But what I realised is that all those things have happened for a reason. And all the challenges and all those things, the pains that I've gone through, they've become the stimulus to my greatest power. Now,
so you've used it for a positive, you've turned it into a positive.
I never would have done public speaking without it. I never would have. I'm writing a book now. I'm halfway through my book, which is all the 5 years, which is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I set up a charity walk in 2016 called Kiwi's Kick Away Cancer Walk, and we've raised 10 grand so far. I never would have done any of this stuff had it not been for all this other stuff. So if to me all of this is using my power to help other people, well then I had to have gone through those challenges. I had to have gone through those pains. And if I didn't, I wouldn't have found my power.
That must have been in you as well, this approach to help people, because the scouting work you do and continue to do and want to push forward with the police, it's all a service for others.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're naturally not altruistic perhaps, but certainly the support you're giving Macmillan and the way you're giving back a lot. Does that help you? I mean, I've got a load of different questions here, but to be honest I'm going to ignore a lot of them because we're kind of touching on points, but does that help you keep looking forward and staying positive? The fact you feel you're helping people and you can use your experience for good.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm not an angel. I've got a past like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I knocked about with the wrong crowd when I was younger. Scouting was the intervention that saved my life.
Wow.
I would have been either in prison or dead by now. And when I look at my life that, and I tell people that now, a lot of people can't believe it. A lot of people say to me, "You can't. No, there's no way, Kiwi. Never in a million years. You're such a nice bloke." But we all have a past, and that's originally stemmed from me wanting to give back. What I realised is that I give back because I can.
Yeah.
I do because I can. And what I realised from my
You're lucky to be here, essentially, what you're saying.
Massively, yeah.
The way you viewed it by being lucky, actually.
Yeah, hugely. And to me, when you give back to something in life, it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, cathartic. It really
massive. When I was a scout leader, I will never forget this. I did my service as a Queen Scout, my Queen Scout Award, and for a year and a half, I helped every Friday at Scout Hut. I was 18 years old. All my mates were out getting pissed. I was at Scout Hut on a Friday night. We finish at 10 o'clock. We'd go to the pub, me and the leaders, not the young people, just to clarify. Me and leaders would go to Me and leaders would go to the pub and have a couple of beers. We would just chat about life and whatever else. But the enjoyment that I got of seeing a young person develop from something to being what they were was the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And to know that you've been a part of that, you've helped and shaped that young person was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And what I realised was that's who I was as a young person. Scouting helped and shaped me, and I thought to myself, well, if I can do that for more young people, then actually, do you know what? All the bad decisions that I made previously, maybe some way it will go to me helping.
Yeah.
And actually, eventually, what happened is I got to a point where I wasn't doing it just because I'd done some bad stuff. I realised that I'd probably given enough. The reason I help people now is very simple. Is because it makes me feel good, but it's the right thing to do, and I do because I can.
Yeah.
And that's really important for me. If I have any other functions to be able to do something to help, look at Stephen Hawkins, remarkable man.
Yeah.
He still does because he can, or did. Sorry, I know he's passed away now, but did because he could. But that was his philosophy. He did that all through his life.
Yeah.
Yes, it was in the journey of science, but how many doctors and everything else, and that's why I do what I do, mate. I know I'm trying to digress a little bit.
No. I wanted this to be as totally open and fluid.
But Macmillan's the same thing, mate. You know, why do I want to do these videos? Why do I want to do these talks? Why will I always do these talks for the rest of my life? You know, I want to hopefully make a career out of doing these talks.
Yeah.
And will I ever charge charities? No. Why? Because they've helped me in ways that I cannot express.
Yeah.
Macmillan were there for me at a time when I was at my lowest, when I was crying my eyes out in hospital. No, I will never ever forget that.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's incredible.
So for me to give up half a day or whatever it might be, I don't see that as anything big.
No.
I just see that as me giving back to an organisation that helped me.
I think it's incredible. I think you're absolutely fascinating. I mean, we haven't even had to die. I mean, the 6 bereavements in 7 months, the divorce, all the things you've gone through, and to come out with that kind of mindset is real testament. I think we've barely scratched the surface, but what I think I'm keen to do is chat to you more for other podcasts and other things, and maybe pick some themes that we can both touch on our own stories. I know you're looking at doing fundraising and more campaigns and cycle-wise, so we've got a lot of things in common. I think a couple of questions that I wanted to wrap up with was, and I'm thinking for the people who are listening to this, if someone's listening to this now, and maybe you mentioned it earlier, but the best advice you received, if you received any advice, and if so, what you would impart on someone else if they said, listen, I'm going through what you did, what advice would you
I guess when I was diagnosed, I was probably quite lucky. I had one of my best mates, a guy called Tom Williams, he was diagnosed with diabetes when he was 18. New Year's Eve, went out, got drunk, woke up in hospital, not with a hangover, with diabetes.
Right.
He was in a coma for 2 days, I think it was. And he helped me to accept my condition for what it was. And that there wasn't anything I could do about it. And that it was given to me for a reason. But the biggest advice that I would give to people is go with whatever feelings you have. And if you wake up and you think, this is overwhelming and this cancer is going to take everything off me, that's fine. If you wake up and thinking, do you know what, I want to go to the pub, do you know what, I want to go and hit 9 rounds, great. If you do and you're a good golfer, please give me some tips, because my short game is terrible. But if you do whatever is going to make you happy,
find that happiness somewhere.
Yeah. And equally, if you're sad and you're feeling down, don't fight against that. Just go with it, because that's natural. Like, it's completely natural.
Yeah.
Utilise and tap into the sources that are out there, like Macmillan, like lots of other charities out there.
That's fantastic. I think one thing I wanted to, I mean, I agree with a lot of that, and I've said very similar things about being yourself when I'm asked what advice would you give. It's cry when you need to, laugh when you need to, because part of being British is having that sense of humour, and in darkness, they say, you can find light, you can find reason to be funny. I had some of the funniest stories, which we can go into another time, but I think that keeps you sane, keeps you sane for the moments with the big dips, and certainly the dark clouds that are over our heads. But what I couldn't get my head around was how I was statistically more likely to have blood available, to have bone marrow available, because of my because I was Caucasian, and I think that's grossly unfair. When I was hearing about potentials for a bone marrow transplant, the person sat next to me, it could have been you, sat next to me with a chronic, it's treated the same, but hypothetically, as a leukemia patient, because we have a different genetic makeup and from different ethnic backgrounds, I'd have more chance. That is ridiculous. And something I did after I came out of treatment was join a part of a campaign called Register and Be a Lifesaver with Anthony Nolan and Keith and Kay Sudbury, who still to this day are doing amazing work for that organisation to help push the government and to help the campaign going, and they're recruiting donors after they're going to schools. So I went around to Birmingham, Bristol, different areas of the country which had which to target those ethnic groups. I guess my last thing was just to get your take on that, because perhaps you weren't told you had less chance to have treatment of these things. Maybe you did, I don't know, but it always sticks so grossly unfair to me that we're at a place. I personally feel it should be an opt-out thing for donating blood and things like that. And this, my life was saved because someone opted in to donate blood and in turn bone marrow over in Germany. And I wouldn't be here without that. But I shouldn't stand a better chance because I'm white. And I just think it's an issue that I think we can tackle going forward. But how positive you are and the talks you give, I think it could help also make a difference and maybe target those areas perhaps as well.
And I mean, it's quite funny you said that. It reminds me of a story, because 2 weeks before I was diagnosed, I actually had my blood donor card.
Really?
My blood donor form ready to fill in.
You were about to donate?
I was about to donate. And now, obviously, I don't think they're going to want my blood. but the irony is, I wanted to do it because I realised from being in police as special constable how important it was.
I bet you would have.
And the message that I would give, and I actually didn't realise that, and actually, like you said it makes sense about being less of a stat. So I think you found another cause that I'm going to hopefully tap into with you, because
I think we could do something together.
No, I think
even if it's more podcasts on the subject.
Well, I think it's really important that I think when we talk, there's a lot of taboo around with ethnic minorities because of the culture of the way we are. We're quite reserved and quite closed off to. You don't air your laundry anywhere in the public. That's just not what you do. And because of that, they often don't tap into resources where they're needed. And the thing that I would say is that if you're thinking about whether you should donate your blood, whether you're thinking about whether you should be a bone marrow and you're of an ethnic minority, do it. Because I was on the Anthony Nolan register when I first got diagnosed. The first 3 months they told me it was touch and go. I could have been one of those people looking for a blood donor. Now, I'm very lucky, I genuinely mean that, touch wood, because I've got a chronic condition and I'm here. But I hate to think...
Did you feel that? That's such an interesting way, because you felt that you didn't want to go near transplant, you didn't want to have to rely on that. So having a chronic thing suited is the wrong word, but sat with you slightly more at ease.
It did actually, because I think, it's the card that you're dealt, I guess, but also for me, I just thought, if I can potentially try and fight this off, if I've got to take medication for the rest of my life, so be it. And my attitude was this actually, was 25 years ago, they didn't have imatinib. So what they're going to have in 25 years' time. That was my attitude. And if I'm 30 years old, 25 years, I'll be 55. I won't have to take medication. So, maybe
that's the positivity.
As always, the half glass full, ever the optimist.
Fantastic. This has been great. I've really enjoyed it, but I think there's a lot more we can chat about and do. and certainly on that last subject, I think there's something in it, and we can keep pushing that. Various things I was going to ask about how you're experiencing our changes. I think we've covered a lot of it. But lastly, I suppose, looking to the future, what's next? What is in the immediate next for you? The sooner rather than later. So what's planned for you?
So for me, I'm actually streamlining the talks that I did, because I've been getting really good feedback on the fact that I seem to be good at public speaking.
You are, yeah, excellent.
And as we've discussed, in the last 5 years or the last 7 years, I've got a lot to talk about, and I think a lot of my talks can help people.
Absolutely.
So the next step for me is to I'm going to be publishing it in a couple of weeks, but offering my talks to whoever wants to listen. Partly my cancer journey, partly the journey through depression, coming out the other side, so that's going to be the next thing. I want to do more talks like this, to keynote speaking, and that's where I want to kind of. I want to do it to help other people, and more importantly, to highlight the support that I got. So that's the aim.
Brilliant.
That's a short-term aim. Still carry on with my walk. I've got my walk, Kiwi's Kick Away Cancer Walk in 2020. But this year I'm going to be doing hopefully a kind of cyclothon, Kiwi cyclothon. I don't know what it's going to be called yet, but to raise money for Macmillan. So
excellent.
And obviously, definitely doing some more collaborations with you.
Let's do that. Let's definitely keep that up. Right, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Again, I really appreciate it, because I've sat here often and I've left it late and I thought, I've got these people lined up and we couldn't make it happen. As soon as I heard your talk the other week, I was so keen to connect. We strike chords on so many levels, personality types as well, except the fact you're a United fan. But apart from that, everything else, we seem to align quite well. But more importantly, I think it's good to have I always want to be positive, and I still want to be positive, to transcend across more than leukemia. I think the things we talk about apply to anyone going through a struggle, or certainly a cancer illness. It can definitely resonate with other people, and that's my aim, to push more content and to speak to more people like yourself, to push those key messaging, and just so people going through it can maybe garner a bit of understanding as to what it's like, but also to pick up on some bits of advice and ways they can maybe help their own journey. And I think the positivity is something I certainly push, and yourself do, and that isn't a sugar-coated positivity, that's a mindset, and I think I'll definitely take your hat off to you for living and breathing that, certainly for all the other things you've had going on. But let's do more of these. I'm really keen, and we'll get some more content and we'll keep going. But for now, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Jonjo. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thanks.